All right, guys. So I've got Hersh, Thelo, and Matt here with me. We're going to talk a little bit about the first weekend rugby, Rugby World Cup opening weekend. We're going to discuss some of the games that happened. We're going to see what some of the highlights and standouts were. So we'll start. We'll start with you, Hersh. What was your standout game / moment from the weekend?
I think for me, South Africa against Scotland. I mean, seeing that I'm a true South African supporter. Um, like a lot of people are questioning the fact that we played against New Zealand and we dominated. Like I actually thought about like why did we not just go for touch like we know what we did against New Zealand? Um, but I think with Springbok with the World Cup, I think it was a very professional performance. It was more like a performance of like we're going to go into the game, we're not going to play energy sapping, we're going to defend a lot, we're going to play rugby when we play rugby. We're going to kick to the poles. Like the humidity is actually a big factor, like the weather is a big factor. I think Zach can actually talk about that, like he was at the stadium. But I think South Africa, honestly, it was a very professional performance. It was just refined performance. It was just like, let's just get the job done, move to the next game. And I think South Africa really did us proud. Like, there was no tries in against us. South Africa really like defended really well. Like at the outside channel, the first channel, you could see Peter Steptoe shooting up, our wing shooting up at the far side. So it looked like an umbrella defense with another defense at the backside. So yeah, I mean, for me, South Africa really performed really well defensively, and when needed to be, when needed to attack, we attacked, and that's basically it for me.
All right, and then I mean let's cover the scoreboard. I mean we left 10 points out there. We can argue one of those kicks was maybe a little bit ambitious, trying to slot it from 60 meters even at altitude. We've got that, and then the reality of a bit of, shall we call him, glitchy Finn Russell after the weekend, because that man was very uncertain about when to pass the ball and when not, as well as Duan. Obviously, I think he was only mentioned twice in the game. So Hirsch, we'll talk about on this with you. Um, what was your take on that? Scotland obviously didn't get any points, any tries on the board.
Correct. Like I mean, like Grim van der Merwe, like he's definitely a great ball carrier. We all know that. But just because it's South Africa's defensive system, it actually like took him out of the game. And I mean, like I remember only in the second half really actually hearing his name, and that's just the the the, the amazing part of South Africa's defensive system that we have. I mean, also like with Finn Russell, like he constantly like the rush defense of South Africa narrows down, so you really have to think very quickly. Sometimes the attacking system of Scotland wasn't even set yet, and he got the ball and he had to move. So there's a lot of things that South Africa did really well. I mean, Scotland didn't even get into South Africa's half that much. I mean, there was like two or three times in South Africa's half with ball in hand. So yeah, I mean, South Africa's defensive system is just another level. It's like a unicorn in itself.
All right, and then on that, what was, so whether it's from this game or any of the other games, what was your highlight for the weekend? Was it one of the results? Was it a moment in a game? What was your standout moment for that?
I think Wales against Fiji. I mean, like I don't want to speak a lot about it. I'll just give like a snippet about it. But I think I think Fiji is coming along. It has come a long way. I mean, they are building more phases than what they did 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. They actually look like a refined team, and hence why they're in the top 10. I mean, they are above Wales, they are above Australia in the world rankings at this moment, and it shows. I mean, I do think that they were a little bit hard down. I do think that the game could have swayed in a lot of different ways, but I think Fiji is a team that can cause upsets. I think they can reach the quarterfinal, and you can see Wales or Australia not making it to the quarterfinals, even with Wales winning their last game. Fiji did pick up a bonus point, which will actually help them in the future.
So Matt, I'll come over to you then with that. Obviously, Fiji lost that game. They really were in it though. I mean, that knock on at the end there. Um, obviously Radanda not catching that ball. You could see both teams were just exhausted. There were obviously some moments we've seen some clips about the end of the first half with Dan Bigger. What is your take from that? I mean, Hersh obviously mentioned there with Fiji coming up really well. I think actually with the updated world rankings, they are now behind Australia and Wales again. What was your standout moment from that game?
Man, it was a frustrating game to watch for me because I really wanted Fiji to win, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, they played a good game. They did improve from the last World Cup. I mean, they are more structured. I like that style of play. It's very similar to All Black style of play where the game is flowing. You got this attacker draws in two defenders. Their offloads are great. They're good at offloading in space. So it creates that free flow type of game against the Welsh, and it was working. I can't say it was a flawed tactic. That style of play worked against the Welsh. The Welsh also played a good game. I mean, they're known for being a physical team, but I saw a lot of running. Guys are now making use of Welsh guys making use of their backline, getting the ball out. So it was a really interesting. It was a fun game. It was a free flowing game, but yeah, the frustration because it was so tight. I mean, it kept you on the edge of your seat, and then when Radradra dropped the ball at that last minute, it just like for people who were backing Fiji, it's just flip, man. The disappointment, man. Your heart just drops out of your hands. But yeah, that was the exciting game for me. I enjoyed that game.
Sorry, Thelo, what was your take on the game?
It's quite interesting because I looked at the game from two sides. I looked at Fiji just running and attacking them full on, which was great, right? They were getting over the advantage line. But the one mistake they never made was kick for poles. They didn't even take 3 or 4 penalties where they could have gotten ahead or kept in score or in touch with Wales, and they decided to run it through. And it made no sense to me at all. So I think Fiji has got a very good, dominant, and a strong lineup. They've got a very good attacking play. They've got a great structure, but kick for balls, get the point, get ahead. You know, the game is still going on. Why not take advantage of it? It's there for a reason. They literally took a penalty from the 22-meter line, right, in front of poles, when they could have just instead of tapping, right, they could have gotten 3 points, gotten kept on to the scoreboard, gotten very close, but they decided no, let me fade away from that and let's run it, and it just made no logical sense to me at all. But anyway, that's my Fiji rant there. But outside of that, yeah, Wales did well. I mean, phew, I, did Wales do well, or did Fiji just not give them the opportunity, right, to give themselves the opportunity to perform? Because Wales were there in the game. You saw Dan Bigger was getting upset for a reason, right? Because he doesn't trust his backline, or he doesn't trust his team. I mean, a player only does that when they don't think that everyone else is up to World Cup standard and taking the risk as well. It just shows that both teams are not really at that level yet. But Fiji has improved, which is great, and that's a great start. I guess obviously be having them playing Super Rugby and a bunch of them also playing in Europe makes a huge difference, and we can see it. Uh, yeah, I think it was a good game. Yeah,
I think it's that old adage of tournament games. Take the points, but build the scoreboard pressure, and it's where the teams that normally perform better in those tournaments are the teams that do that, right? And that's kind of maybe one of the things Fiji still needs to learn. As much as it's exciting rugby to watch, and it's exhilarating to watch them run around the way they do. But to win a game at the end of the day, you got to take those points. You got to take your opportunities.
100%. Fully agree. So I guess looking at, I don't know who they're playing next, but the one thing I do know is that there has to be a conversation in that coaching staff and the coaching panel, and the likes of Fiji and Wales as well have to really step up if they want to remain competitive in this World Cup.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll get onto that in a bit. I want to talk about the game that excited me the most this weekend. Japan Chile, obviously Chile's first World Cup, and sure, I mean we would have expected Japan to comfortably take that game. Although Japan's obviously not necessarily at their form that they were in 2019. But Chile in their first World Cup, we would have expected it to be a game that Japan, would have easily put away, and they did not let that happen. I mean, Chile was in that fight the entire game. It was an exhilarating game to watch. It was a lot of up and down, a lot of points scored. I mean, sure. Thelo, what did you watch the game? What was your take on that?
So I know one. Well, I couldn't catch the game, unfortunately. I think I was on the train somewhere in the world. But the one thing I do know is that Chile has actually structured a good system. Well, the whole of South America as well has got a good rugby system, the America Cup, where they play America, Brazil, and it's like a World Cup kind of scene where they're trying to see who's the better team, or Tri Nations in a way. So what has happened, yeah, Americas. So what has happened is Chile has also managed to gather a few Argentinian players, to also ex-players, to come coach them as well, to get them used to that level of physicality and competition or whatever. So the likes of Japan, um, you could see that both sides were in it, but the likes of Japan, who's much more advanced and much more ahead, did kind of steer off a bit, watching from the highlights, and lost track of things. It kind of makes sense because they've also lost their competitive edge with them not being in Super Rugby and not competing at that level. Yes, yes, they've got players from all other nations that have joined their leagues, but I feel like because of that, there's been a distrust in the system, and that can cause obviously a rift in it as well. So yeah, Chile's been doing amazing. They're keeping their core group in the same club, same structure, and that core group knows each other so well. They could go to a World Cup and play really well. So yeah, I think they've done a good job, and it's a good start to greater things.
Nice. All right, then let's get on to the shock results of the weekend. Were there any? I think obviously, Friday night's results, we can talk about France taking that one a little bit. But Matt, from your perspective, if we look at the World Rugby expectations, right? Obviously, we know Australia and England haven't been on their best form. They managed to both get the win, which is good for World Rugby, right? It's good for them to get the nonsense together. Um, but what was the shock results, or the shock outcomes, if there were any, for you over the weekend?
Well, one shock result. I know previously I called it. You do remember when we were talking about the Argentina and England game? I said England were going to win, but it was going to be a tight one, and I expected it to be that way, and it kind of was. But now, taking in consideration that they were playing one man down, and I expected, if you're playing one man down, because people need to understand that this is not football or soccer, if you want to call it that. Where you lose one man and you can still fare well. um, in rugby, one man down 14 against 15 creates a huge issue because there's just that weakness in the chain link, and the opposition can always capitalize on that, and every man on that field has to work so much harder just to make up for one loss. And when that happens, most of the time, it doesn't go down well. So, when you couple that with the fact that now you're playing a strong team like Argentina, it shouldn't have went well for you. But I must say, Ford's kicking was freaking phenomenal. He won the match for them, definitely. So, yeah, that was the shocker for me, because I mean, when I saw the red card happen, I was like, okay, they're done. And they were like, we're not we are relentless, we're not giving up. Because, and especially also think about the Fiji upset, I was like, okay, this is not the same team that we thought they were. So how are they going to now pull off this thing with Argentina, with one man down? And then that for me, that's a shocker. That for me was a shocker, I must say. So well done to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think George Ford obviously with the 3 drop goals in 10 minutes, some of them pretty big as well. Dropping in 40 meter drop goals is not an easy task, right? Under pressure, um, and as you said, maybe that red card changed that approach a little bit in the game. Obviously, being the men down, they just opted for scoreboard pressure from the get go. Maybe that was always the game plan to ensure the win, but that was definitely a solid win there for England. Taylor, any comments on that, or what was your shock result for the weekend?
Well, I mean, we always knew eventually Townsend's system will come into play. He just got this team, People forget it's only been, what, like 2 years since he's joined England, since Eddie left. And, yeah, it's good. It's a good sign for things going ahead. Uh-huh. So, Borthwick, yeah, Borthwick. So, yeah, I think he's done a good job. And yes, he's had a string of really bad games for the past few weeks, a few months, I guess. But change will happen eventually. It doesn't happen in the space of a year. It does take time. And this is and at the World Cup, it's the perfect time for them to find form, realign. Ford going for those drop kicks, that was a great start. It obviously brings a level of confidence in the team as well, in the setup. And then you've got the forward pack, which still slightly not as dominant as we want them to be, right? But that little piece of confidence can go a long way, can rejuvenate England. And a strong England side is always good for rugby. So, and they have a nice, well, relatively easy way to the semis, I have to admit. So, yeah, I think it's just a good sign of good things that could go ahead, hopefully, for them.
And any other games from the weekend, or results or moments that stood out for you?
Well, Radradra should have just caught that ball. That's pretty much it. If he just caught that ball, Fiji would have won. You know,
Yeah, they've made it hard for themselves now. I mean, they've got to go take on Australia now and win that game. And we saw, like, Australia obviously played Georgia. Um, yes, it was a physical game. I don't think the Georgians quite stepped up as we're used to them stepping up from a physicality perspective. But Australia got the win, which if Fiji wants to make it through to the quarters now, they really do have to go win that game.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I wasn't. They the fallen giants of rugby, Australia. Really, that's what they are. They're not what they used to be. And I mean, if you look at that game with Georgia, in the past, if you looked at what Australia used to do, that would have been a total annihilation of Georgia, which is not the case. Look, I'm not saying that because they're the giants now, they're always going to be the giants. Obviously, the rugby's evolving, and the small teams are getting stronger as well. You can't really compare and say, okay, they always used to whoop Georgia like that. They're going to do it again. The small teams are getting better. They're getting more advanced. So, but really speaking, in proportion, Australia has become a weaker side. So versing a team like Georgia, and Georgia taking it to them to an extent, it wasn't really. I wouldn't call it a walkover. Um, yeah, it's.
disagree with the weaker side notion.
We'll hear your part now, but yeah, I'm just saying that I don't. It'll be interesting to see how far they can get with this team. It seems like they're still finding their feet in a way. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one to see how they fare as the World Cup continues.
Well, I mean, you've got Eddie Jones, right, who's running the show now in Australia, who's world-renowned Eddie Jones, who made England a good rugby team, even with those kind of players. that forward pack. This is Eddie Jones that won the World Cup with Australia. You know, this is Eddie Jones that won a World Cup with South Africa as well. This is not a normal Australian team, and I think in time they will find themselves. You know, they've got a good back line, physical forwards. They do, man. I mean, they beat South Africa last year, right? So this is a good team, and if Australia can just find their bearings, which I think they slowly will, they will definitely work their way up the ladder in the World Cup. I see them in the semis, and yeah, I don't view them as a weaker team. I view them as a smarter team with the right game. You know, where they know they can make an upset or two, or cause a team to slow down. I mean, they did well against France as well. You know, so just watch. France didn't have their whole way in that whole game, if you really think about it and if you analyze it. You know, Australia was still there. You could see Australia was getting over the advantage line, and they did the same thing this weekend. So where they won, I think it's coming together, and it's just going to take a matter of time.
So the question then really is, will they get it together enough under Eddie for the quarters, for the semis? You know, as mentioned with England, they've got that side of the draw for the pool cup, for the World Cup is a little bit on the easier side. So will Eddie manage to get it together? And look, I think this is a sixth game now under the second stint for Australia. Obviously lost the first five. They took the Georgia game. It's on. Let's put it that way. We know Eddie, as you said there, he's got the track record. Can he stitch it together with the Australian side to get them all the way? It's going to be interesting. All right, then I think on the last one, let's tackle Ireland Romania. Shaw obviously called it last week.
So I don't know what the medical staff is going to do for Romania, but they'll definitely. I mean, they're playing against Scotland, they're playing against Ireland, they're playing against South Africa. I mean,
Physical.
the medical
And
team, they're gonna. Sorry.
And they've got Tonga in there as well, just in case.
I mean, like the medical. Tonga. I mean, imagine that heat. I mean, for me personally, I think the only thing that Romania has to worry about is to make sure that they get flight tickets for players that is at home. Come over so they can just get the match ready, match fit ready. That's the only thing Romania has to think about. Don't worry about the score. Just worry about having enough players on the field and in the World Cup. That's the only thing Romania has to worry about. They're going to get murdered. The South Africans is going to murder them. It's going to be tragic.
Romania is going to have a tough day in Pool B, and they started with world number one Ireland, and it was a bit of a slaughterhouse. I watched the game. Obviously, Romania, getting that quick try. They had little moments, right? Which for them, I think, is probably exciting. I think the scoreline obviously hurts at the end, but there were little moments. They stole a line out or two. They had a couple line breaks. It was, as much as Ireland obviously dominated the scoreboard, there were moments that it was very exciting to watch.
Well, I like what Romania did. They went into a World Cup. They faced Ireland. Obviously, they got hammered, but now they know. Now they know the level at which them as a organization need to get through. Now they know what they need to do. Now they know their steps in which to take to go ahead. And I say Romania, if they do qualify for the next World Cup, will be there and thereabout. I feel like Ireland started off really late, and you could see the nerves as well from their edge, and that's what caused Romania to score in the beginning, right? So it felt like Ireland is there, but because of the pressure of them being number one and everyone expecting them to do well, they it got to them a bit. It's obviously hard to take a lot from that game in terms of a game management or structure, or whatever the case is. But what I do know is that Ireland is not the number one kid, right, in the pool right now. That's the better swimmer than everyone else. And, well, as you can see from the likes of France, that's running the show, that owns the pool, which makes a huge difference. But I really see Ireland falling away, and Romania won't progress, obviously. But what I do see them doing is learning from this, getting stronger, getting better, and getting them into a better position come the next World Cup. Uh, but the likes of your Romanians, especially Georgia as well, these teams do have to somehow get into competing against the bigger guys, the bigger unions. I mean, you can see from the youth programs and the youth structure, they are starting to improve. They're starting to learn. They're starting to grow. Why not get them? You know, rugby should be more of a global sport, an inclusive sport globally. And I understand there's financial limitations and this and that, but we do need to find a way to get these teams or these other countries in the system, whether it's Six Nations or another tri-nation structure or a tier, second tier structure that's televised. You know, they can bring revenue in. Uh, yeah, that's just my point of view on it.
Yeah, so I don't know what Manitello talking about here, because to be honest with you, he's talking about Romania, you know, finding their feet and heading someplace, like they actually going to head someplace. To be honest with you, you know, they that kid now in high school that just didn't develop, and now they, they small fish in a big pond there, and is literally the reality for them is that they're just there to get roughed up and bullied every freaking game that they walk into. And yeah, they're just there to make up the number. There's not really any path to success for them. They're going to get knocked out. That's the cold truth. But what was worrying for me is that obviously, if you saw what happened with that Ireland game, yes, they got thrashed, Romania. But the thing is that if Ireland can let a team like that, because they had moments. Yes, they were stopped in their tracks, but they had moments where they were actually gaining on Ireland. Running through the gaps. And you think about it, you're like, okay, Ireland, you guys are gonna let a small team like that do that. Now, what happens when one of the big sharks in the pool have to face you? Okay, and because if you give them that gap, they're gonna capitalize on that. So I don't know whether it was part of the strategy, because it also seemed like Ireland was using Romania as practice. Because man, the backline moves that they were doing were like, the things they were pulling off. You normally can't pull those off in an international game, and they were doing it. So I don't know whether they were like, okay, let's let them run through, and then yeah, we can just work on our defense. We'll just try and catch them, stop them. Just try and put ourselves in different scenarios and just use them as a tool, basically a tool to sharpen the blade. So yeah, that's what I saw with the game. But yeah, it's sad to say, with Romania, they basically there as basically a punching bag for the rest of the teams.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a hard couple of weeks for Romania. Let's leave it at that. Let's get on to the last point then before we hop off. Scotland in the pool of death. Obviously, they would have really wanted to take that first game. They didn't. They've really got a long road ahead. They've got the next weekend off, and then I think they go. Is it Tonga next or Romania? I can't remember who their next game is, but they've obviously got a must-win 3 weeks now on the trot with Ireland at the end. What do you think the camp is feeling at the moment? The team's feeling, they got a bit of a beating against South Africa, as we spoke about the 10 points left on the field, and they were never really looking like scoring apart from maybe one moment. What are they going to do, Thelo?
So, you know, being at the sidelines and being there, I'll start looking. I'll look at it from points of view. I'll start with the first half, where Scotland was there. You know, physically they matched up to South Africa, and Finn Russell played really well. Yes, you could see that in terms of game management. That's where South Africa won. It felt like South Africa was always in control from the word go, and Scotland was just pushing, trying to gain control all the way through. It was an arm wrestle for them, but I got to give it up to them. They managed to physically match up to South Africa in the first half to their forward pack, which was good. The only problem was is that South Africa is obviously going to come out in the second half, knowing what they know, and bring that out in a different way. So Scotland, I think it's a positive, right? And I do feel like if Scotland do push ahead, they could beat Ireland, and I think they sense it as well. You know, it's one because they already have played against Ireland a ton of times, so they know their system. And if they play the way they did against us, I think they can take it. Yeah. So yeah, I really think they've got a good team, good forward pack. Finn Russell is a great leader, and I'll take a lot of positives from this game. You know, I wouldn't look at the score line in any form of reflection at all. It was just mistakes off hands. Finn Russell maybe because of the way South Africa controlled the game. Finn Russell not having that leeway to run things the way he did, but. Against Ireland, I think he will be able to, and they're going to target that as a final. Right? So an upset can happen there.
Okay, and I mean, so Matt, I'll come over to you. Obviously, Ireland's challenge is going to be they're coming off of facing Tonga and then South Africa before heading into the Scotland game. So, two very physical games. We probably expect them to take the Tonga game, but it is, we know Tonga is a hard game. So physically could be a very tough game for them. Then followed with the World Champs, which obviously we saw against Scotland this weekend. The defense, the pressure, the physicality, they're going to go into that Scotland game in a couple of weeks' time. Probably off a couple hard weeks. Do you think they're taking that into account? How are they going to approach this over the next few weeks?
Yeah. So to be honest, like for Ireland to uh, fare surpass those two teams, it's a physical game. They themselves play a physical game. So I can imagine the injury that's about to happen. The amount of player loss you're gonna suffer, which is just great for Scotland, really. Because obviously, if you're losing key players, you're not exactly playing the A side, if you want to call it that. With Ireland, so Scotland, they had to get in there, and I think they knew they were going to get a loss out of this South African game. It was more just for them to. I think their thing was, we're walking in there. It's a tough team. It's our first game. We need to let's get our bearings together. I think I think even they were like, what, just relax on this one. Let's try and save bodies, because South Africa was a physical game as well. So and South Africa, look, they did dominate. Like, if you look at the rucks and those type of things, like I said before, the only way I saw Scotland getting any leverage is if they were quick in the breakdown to get the ball out. But they were actually quite slow with that, and you can't really try and go in there rough up South Africa. So for me, it feels like they didn't really. They were like, what? Let's just let this game pass. Let's just try and save bodies, because it's a long World Cup. So yeah, if they can stand their ground and keep their depth and their team, uh, hopefully what will happen is, I think what they're hoping for is Ireland picks up a lot of injuries through those two matches, and yeah, basically uh, they can capitalize on Ireland's loss. But also, don't count Ireland out. I'm pretty sure if we know it, then they know it. They also gonna take into consideration, the injuries, and they're gonna probably try and work around it. So look, it's a tough call, but yeah, we'll just have to see when the time arises.
Okay. Yeah, we got a couple of games in a couple of weeks before that. I think it's just we've seen the first round now. We know what a lot of the teams need to do to make it through. Um, and obviously, a couple of the bigger games went down this weekend. So, yeah, guys, first weekend done. We've got a lot of rugby left in the World Cup. I'm excited to see it unfold further, and seeing England and Australia back to their winning ways is a solid start for that. Um, and yeah, I think that's it from us. Thelo, anything else from your side you're looking forward to?
Let's go, Romania. That's who I'm supporting for this World Cup.
Oh my gosh. Okay. These guys like to disappoint themselves, I see. But yeah,
We need to get Johnny in here with the Chile support as well.
Manny Thelo told me that he's going to make his way back soon and to cause a bit of chaos. So get ready, boys.
Cool, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you again later.
just